Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me again on another Friday, a very rainy Friday here in Los Angeles. I'm Greg Swartz. I'm the big man half of the Dram, and sadly, I still don't have a Dram. I'm on day 24 of my dry February, so I do have a can of seltzer, which is depressing. So I want to jump right into what we're going to talk about this week because I'm really excited about it because it has it's something I personally am really excited to do, not just talk about. And what we're doing is, and maybe some of you have seen this, is we're actually doing a tour of Scotland based on around whiskey and food and Scotland. And we're doing it with Rascal Thorn, which is a gastronomic travel company that we met through the course of making the film. Actually, after we made the film, we met in Bruichladdich courtyard or at Kalila during the Festival. And sort of became friends and decided this would be a really good fit. So I have Charles Grabitzky with me today, who is one of the founders of Rascal and Thorn. I'm actually going to find out today if he's Rascal or Thorn. I don't know if there's any clear delineation. I've never asked them that question before. But Charles is also the co-founder of the First Hill Spirit Shop in Saratoga, New York, which, if you haven't been, is one of the best whiskey shops in the country, I think, and is just a real kind of dreamscape of whiskey. So enough about me. That wasn't about me. I don't know why I said that, but I'm going to invite Charles in now. And so please welcome Charles.
Hello, everybody. Hey, Greg. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Thanks for joining me. I am really excited to talk to you because I'm really excited about what we're up to. I've started posting a lot about it on our social media, but, I wanted to, sort of get your thoughts on it, just about how this kind of came to be, how we met and how the whole trip came to be.
Yeah, no. So just give a little background on the travel business that I started a while back. In 2014, I started taking groups on kind of specialized visits around the world. I actually started with a soccer trip to the World Cup in Brazil. Brought a group down to Brazil, had a blast. Really great fun group. But came back from that and was like, okay, I want to get more focused in travel. And I'd been and lived in different countries throughout my life. And really wanted to focus on that again. And I fell in love with Scotch about 25 years ago or so. And I really wanted to visit Scotland and distilleries. And so my first whiskey tour was in 2015 to Scotland, small group. And we focused on the Speyside mostly. We were in the Highlands as well. But came back from that trip and was like, oh my goodness, this is really what I want to do. And so during that time, I had known my business partner, John Sconzo, who is a food guru, to put it lightly. He's a doctor of food, basically. He's an anesthesiologist by heart, but food addict. And I had seen he had taken some people to Spain a couple of times. And so I was like, oh, this would be a great fit. So I approached him and told him that, I do whiskey tours and love the food stuff. And so we created Rascal and Thorn. And since really 2015, we've been doing many trips a year, not just whiskey focused. Some of them are food and cocktail focused. We've even taken groups to Oaxaca on mezcal trips. So really a wide variety of experiences. But for me, whiskey is my specialty, if you want to call it that. Taken many groups to Scotland, Ireland, Japan, Kentucky, actually leaving for Japan in a few weeks with a very great group, 12 people. Can't wait for that trip. But yes, so we met in 2019 at the festival on Isla. I was with John, and we briefly kind of ran into each other multiple times at different events during the festival and watched the movie, fell in love with the movie. I thought it was just absolutely incredible. I'm a huge Bruichladdich fan, so for me it was kind of a dream movie to watch and see Jim do his thing. So I don't know. I think John had reached out because he had a little bit of a cameo in the movie at the Event Horizon tasting there at Bruichladdich. he was getting a selfie with when they were doing the master tasting there, and so he reached out to you, Greg, and I think you guys met up in the Lake George, upstate New York area, and yeah, so we started talking, and here we are with a pretty exciting trip that we put together that really focuses on, a big chunk of what the movie focused on, which was, kind of the revolution of whiskey that kind of started on Isla with a lot of these different cask expressions, and Jim obviously leading the pack with that. We talked, and yeah, so June this summer we're doing a really, really incredible trip to Isla. I unfortunately am not going. This is one that conflicted with some other whiskey tours that I'm doing at the time. But John will be going. Greg will obviously be going. And my business partner from First Fill Spirits, Holly Sidewan, her whiskey love, she will be joining as well. So you're in great hands with the three of them. Very small group. And yeah, it's going to be exciting. And first of many with Greg and all of the films that he's working on. So we're really excited.
I'm excited too, and that was a great introduction, Charles. I would ramble endlessly, so yeah, that was nice and to the point.
Well, I can ramble. Trust me, I ramble all the time. You can't be in this game if you don't ramble.
One of the things that happens all the time is to us when we show the film, we go around. I was just in Canada for a week, and people said to us, "Oh, now I really want to go to Scotland," and it was so awesome to be able to say, "Well, come with us," because that's exactly what this is. That's exactly what we're doing, and I'm really excited. This will be my. I hate to say this. This is an embarrassment of riches. I believe this will be my 17th trip to Scotland.
Wow, that's wonderful.
I might be off a trip or two, and that's even kind of an embarrassment. I don't know anymore. Yeah, I believe it's in the mid-teens. That's for sure. It's either between 16.
Well, you've got me beat by quite a bit, so I don't have that many under my belt.
But this is something that's unique for me too, because people. One of the questions we get asked in Q&As all the time is like, "Well, did you guys get to drink incredible whiskeys?" And yes, we did. And now that's exactly what's going to happen on this trip too. Because
to just kind of explain, the Rascal and Thorn component, John and I, when we create groups or tours, the goal with the tour is to create something that's can't be done just on your own. I know with the internet now and with everybody's relationships with different distilleries or hotels or whatever, you can probably create your own trip. But what we do is we really try and bring some behind the scenes experiences, some really truly unique experiences in all of the places that we go to. Just for example, I have Japan coming up in a few weeks. We have a great relationship now with Chichibu, and we just love visiting them, and it's just a win-win for everybody because we're bringing true whiskey lovers to their distillery, which is not something that the general public can do. So we're trying to really, take it a notch up with our trips. Very small groups. My typical group to Scotland is usually between 6 to 10 people. When I do Ireland, it might be a little bit bigger, 12 people, maybe max 13. Kentucky, same, about 12 is kind of my max. And then Japan this one's pretty big. We're at 12 for this. Usually though, that's 8 to 10 people. But since COVID, people are chomping at the bit to sign up. So I had to open it up to a few people as well who got left out because of COVID. So international travel right now is really hot. Everybody's just wanting to get out. But the probably the best thing that I hear from people who've been on our trips is, they don't have to do anything. They literally just show up. You get to the initial departure point, which for your trip, Greg, is Glasgow. Get there wherever you come from, doesn't really matter because we have people from all over the world. And we take it from there. So you're in our hands, and you don't really have to do much other than, just watch your step and, don't drink too much. But, that's kind of the nice thing. People stress about trip planning, and especially nowadays, you hear about, cancellations and just all of the stresses with travel. We really try and make it so that you don't have to worry about any of that. And it's very comfortable. Usually great groups of people from all different walks of life. And again, this trip, like a lot of our trips, is going to have some really incredible stuff. And that's, I think, the most exciting part about this trip. This is like a different trip. This is like next level. When I take people to Scotland, typically we're focused really on whiskey. Like whiskey is really what we're focused on. And this trip's got more than that. This trip's got food. It's got interactions with people who know how to pair food with whiskey. It's really kind of the next level kind of Rascal and Thorn trip. It's not your typical Isla trip. It's a unique one-off, if you want to call it that. We've been working, with you, Greg, on stuff at Bruichladdich and at Kilchoman, and this is going to be once in a lifetime experiences. So I'm very jealous. I'm happy that Holly gets to go and John gets to go, but I am very jealous, I have to say.
Well, I'm trying my best to do something that's reflective of the film, and as you guys well know, and trying to kind of connect with the right people in the right way. And in no way do I want to demean the basic tour that distilleries give, because that's great. And I've done dozens and dozens of them. I just thought, well, that's not exactly how we want to do this. And we may very well do some of those. Don't get me wrong. We may very well do that as just the sort of the starter of the whole day, or the starter of the whole visit to a distillery. But I know it, like, for example, we were talking with Kilchoman last week, and we're going to start that with the tour, and then we're going to kind of go into our own thing. And same with Bruichladdich. I'm actually working on something really special with Bruichladdich. I can't say anything about it yet, because the woman I'm dealing with there is off. I don't know if she's on vacation or sick. She's off this week, so we're going to talk next week. But and
the reality is, some of the people we have on this trip right now, it's actually almost full at this point. Most of them haven't been to Isla before, so distillery tours for them are important. As well. Sure. Maybe not somebody who's been there 10 times, who's seen, these tours over and over, but the majority of the people so far on this trip haven't been to Isla. So that's actually pretty cool. On top of it, they get not only to see that, but they get this top-notch experience, special experience that they'll never forget. That's for sure.
Well, it's funny, because one of the things that I'm like, I'll give you an example that I'm trying to do at Bruichladdich is, for people who are Bruichladdich fans, you'll know what this means. But, we're going to try to visit the Octomore farm, James Brown's farm, not the Godfather of Soul. If you're a Bruichladdich nerd, you know who he is, but he's the Godfather of Soil. He is the farmer in Port Charlotte who is in our film briefly, and also is the all of the 0.3 Octomores are single farm Octomores from his farm, and Bruichladdich water comes from a spring on his land, and he's always been very generous with making himself and his land available to us. So we're going to try to go visit his spring house, which is pretty cool, and we're also going to do some other fun things as well. And one of the cool things, like, I'll give you an example that if people who haven't done this yet, if we go to Bunnahabhain, I've been speaking with Bunnahabhain about doing the Warehouse 9 tasting, which is pretty epic, where you just go into this warehouse and then everything you're drinking is straight out of casks, and they rotate through different casks, and there's always different ones, and it's always cask strength, really unique, older, different cask finishes, really, really cool stuff that then a lot of it's not even for sale. Some of it might be as a distillery exclusive, like you could fill a bottle from it as well. But it's literally, you're pulling it out of the cask and then drinking it, to the point that sometimes there's little bits of charcoal in the glass, and I've done it a couple of times, and it's pretty fantastic. So,
there truly aren't a lot of experiences on Isla that aren't incredible, whether it's a warehouse tasting at Bunnahabhain or Lagavulin or, you name it. These are, compared to, I mean, the mainland sure has great distilleries and great experiences, but for such a concentrated island of, whiskey experiences, it's just amazing. I mean, I remember my first tour to Isla, and we were doing, warehouse tasting at 10 a.m. and then another one at 1 o'clock. And I mean, it was a lot, but it was incredible. I mean, you're drinking just like the most amazing whiskeys ever. And even if you're not into peat, it makes you a peat lover. I mean, I brought somebody to on our tour, and I was shocked that they signed up because they don't like peated whiskey. I'm like, you know where you're going, right? I mean, we're going to Isla. This is, there's some heavy peat, and he left a convert. So I mean, it is incredible stuff to the point where, the whiskey speaks for itself, right? You're not you're not having your grandfather's uh, crappy peated expression that put you off of peated scotch for the rest of your life. You're tasting stuff that very few people get to try, and it's just amazing. I mean, and then just being there, right? I mean, that's the whole other experience. I mean, whenever I drink, so I'm drinking right now, and I'm drinking a long row from Campbelltown, from Springbank. It's a 10-year refill Malbec cask. And I'm in Puerto Rico, by the way. I brought this with me. I'm on vacation this week. But when I sip this whiskey, it takes me right back to Campbelltown. That's what it's
Sure.
all about. When you try these Isla whiskeys, the next time you're back in the US or wherever you're from, it brings you right back there. It's just this amazing place and experience. And whiskey is built around memories, tastes, experiences. It all comes back to something you recognize. And, I don't know. I instantly get transported back to these places when I'm tasting these different whiskeys. And I love that. To me, that's really what makes the full rounded experience of, being in the place. I visited now, I believe it's about 140 distilleries, and
Wow.
I can literally drink a whiskey and it will take me somewhere. I don't know where. It might not be the correct distillery, but it will remind me of something that I've had somewhere, and that's really what makes it so special.
Uh, and it's funny too because like with Bunnahabhain and Bruichladdich, I think that's it, right? There's even plenty of whiskeys that aren't peated at both.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
I mean, not
And
like I love peat,
incredible.
and it's funny because I always look. I say this as a big fan of Lafroig. I am, but I think some people are afraid of that Lafroig style of peat smoke. That's different. It's its own unique thing, and
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. But I understand that it is a bit jarring the first time you drink it. I always say a lot of people don't remember the first whiskey they ever had, but everybody remembers the first time they tasted Lafroig. And
Yeah. And if that was truly your first scotch ever, you might not be drinking scotch right now, because that has truly Lafroig has not by their design by any means, but Lafroig has unfortunately put off a number of people who could be incredible whiskey drinkers. Just because it's not something that they were used to or accustomed, their palate wasn't
sure.
ready for that yet. I love Lafroig. I love all of their expressions, really. I mean, some are better than others, but if that's your first whiskey ever,
Right.
you're in trouble. Ardbeg 10, same thing, or any of these, kind of rough around the edges. Let me punch you in the face, Pete. Pete slaps. I was just
And
thinking about it earlier today. What was my first whiskey? And this was a long time ago. This was back in the 90s. It was Oban 14, and a lot of people love Oban 14, and for a good reason. It's definitely one of those that you can, enjoy, and it translates for different people. It's approachable. It has a tiny whiff of peat in it, but you can't really pick it out unless you're really finicky. But that's one of those distilleries that has been in the U.S. since 1988. That Oban 14 has been around since 1988 in the U.S. One of the first uh, uh, aged single malt scotches that entered the U.S. market back when Scotch was still not totally in favor, and it's lasted its time, and I love it. But then my second one that I kind of was given as a gift was Talisker 10, and I was like, what the hell? And it was like, this is expensive. And this was, again, this was back in like around 2000 or so. And it took me like a year to kind of just gradually understand it and start to pick it apart. And by the time I was probably about a third of the bottle left, I was really loving it. And I was like, wow. And then you go to Talisker on top of that, and it just rounds it all out for you. It's just, okay, I get it. I see why it tastes like it does, So
I'm pretty sure my first whiskey ever was a Crown Royal. But
okay. Well, I wasn't talking like, I mean, in college, yeah, we had.
But yeah, that's what I mean. This would have been
Southern
Pilfered from my dad's
all
liquor
that
cabinet.
crappy, whatever.
But my first single malt was Glenlivet.
Okay.
I bought myself a Glenlivet when I was an exchange student in Glasgow, and I have to admit, the funny thing is, even then, my ear loved hearing it was the Glenlivet. This wasn't some random Glenlivet; it was the Glenlivet. And now I make fun of that as like this marketing hook, but it totally worked on 19-year-old me.
It's funny for me. Oban 14 was my first kind of love. And I was living in Tennessee at the time. I was surrounded by, Jack Daniels and whatever other Kentucky bourbons were in the area, but I wasn't into American whiskey at the time. I really truly fell in love with Scotch first. I love it now. I love all whiskey now, but I ended up before COVID for a couple of years working for Diageo, actually doing tastings all across upstate New York at liquor stores and doing seminars as well. And Oban 14 was one of my whiskeys, so it was like full circle. I had tasted it, 25 years ago or whatever. I'd visited the distillery many times, and then now I was standing in a liquor store pouring people samples of it. It was truly the full circle. I don't do that anymore. I have my own store, so we don't have to do that. We pour other whiskey now, but and
I don't have any questions on the chat yet, but a couple of people have said hello. I saw Holly said that you look tan.
I look tan? Oh, please. No, I don't look tan. I'm wearing a white shirt.
Lynn, who's coming with us, is on the trip, is looking forward to Octomore Farm. And I will tell you, Lynn, you won't be disappointed. It's James.
So I heard you ask, Greg, you asked who is the Rascal and who is the Thorn.
Yeah.
And where did the name maybe come from? So John, who's an amazing guy, he's multi-talented. He got me into food and cocktails and all of that, which was not something that I was totally into at the time. But John had, at one point, he was writing a blog. It was a really great blog called Doc Scon's Musings on Food and Life. And every year on April Fool's Day, April 1st, he would write a blog post, completely outlandish, hilarious, never possible, but people would believe it. The way he would write the post made it believable. One year he had adopted some cheetahs. One year his son got into Barcelona's youth football program. I mean, they were the most outlandish things. But one year he had said that he was going to open a cocktail bar in Glens Falls, which is where he lives, or Queensbury, Glens Falls, called Rascal and Thorn. And I don't know exactly where he came up with that name, but people believed it because he was a true cocktail lover. And, it kind of made sense. It wasn't as far flung as adopting cheetahs. But again, he had to tell everybody that it was a joke, that it wasn't happening, and some people were disappointed. But at that point on Instagram, he was calling every cocktail that he created at his home. He created that at his Rascal and Thorn home bar. So his home bar became Rascal and Thorn. And so when we joined forces, we were trying to figure out a name, and we struggled. We went like a couple weeks, knocking our head against the wall, and eventually, I think we were in my office, and I think I might have said it. I said, "How about we just use your home bar name, Rascal and Thorn?" And we sat on it for a couple days, and we're like, "All right, let's do it." So to get back to who's the Rascal and who's the Thorn, typically the way it works is if John is on one of my whiskey trips, he is the Thorn. If I am on one of his food trips, I'm the Thorn. So the Rascal is always kind of the person whose expertise is kind of leading the way. Now on this trip with you, since you're kind of the Rascal. Well, no, I guess you and John are the Rascals on this trip. Because he's really guiding the food experiences on this trip, and you're doing most of the whiskey. So I'm not there. So the Thorn is staying home on this trip, I guess. But there you go. In a nutshell.
Sounds good. Yeah, no, that's great. That makes me think that I have a bigger role to play than I'm going to count on Holly to actually.
Holly has to have her own name, I think, for this trip. Yeah, we'll just call her Lucky Holly.
I wanted to share this. This is from the day that I met you, and this is the kind of tastings that we want to do. Obviously not quite as big, but this is the master class from the day that we would have met. And
Adam was so incredible
in the warehouse.
Yeah.
And I also, though, I wanted to share another, and I got to figure out how to do this because let me see if I can share this. I'm really excited to share something kind of fun. But I'm going to keep talking to you while I'm doing it because I didn't get a chance to do it beforehand. And so what I want to do is share this photo I have of John from the movie. And this is kind of how we met. I mean, like we said before, we actually had met before, but this was a chance for us to sort of. What happened was the first night we aired the film online, he saw the film and then he wrote on Instagram, "I was watching this movie and I think he said he was really loving it or whatever, and lo and behold, he was in it." And so there you go.
Oh, there he is. Yeah.
So that's a shot in the movie where they're talking about how modern distillers have to actually have media training and they sort of interact with the public, and they didn't used to. They used to just make whiskey, and so this is Adam Hannett posing for a selfie with Rascal and or Thorn. So
that was an exploratory trip. The festival, that wasn't a tour of ours. I try to avoid festivals. I've done actually my last trip to Japan was just prior to the pandemic. It was in February of 2020, and we were at the Chichibu Whiskey Festival. That's like one of the only festivals I've ever included on a tour. It's just too chaotic, and the last thing you want to do is worry about where everybody is during a festival, because everybody's just off drinking and trying all sorts of stuff. And so when I go to Scotland, I try to go during the off times, so for example, like this trip, it's a couple weeks after the festival, which is actually perfect because they've kind of relaxed for a little bit and gotten over the chaos of the festival. There still is most likely some festival whiskey around to try, which is going to be fantastic. And they're ready for us. But I'm doing typically most of my trips are like in September or October or May, April. I try to avoid the summer as much as possible. Even though this year I'm doing a private coastal trip, and I do private group trips as well. So if anybody's interested in putting together a group of anywhere from 5 to 12 people, I do private trips all the time. I'm taking a group on a private coastal trip, and when you go all the way up to Orkney, which is kind of where we're starting. Well, we're doing a big loop, but Orkney is kind of our first real stop. You can't really go there in October or November without risking getting stuck there because of the weather and the ferries and all of that. So July, August is usually the best time to go to some of these places that are more hard to get to, just from a safety standpoint, not getting stuck in the wintertime somewhere. But typically, the best time for me is off season. I love it. The distilleries have more time. You got to obviously make sure that they're operating and not doing their cleaning or shut down. But it's typically a beautiful time to go. But this one's going to be great in June. I can already tell it's perfect time. They're all excited to have us. So.
Well, one of the things we're doing that it's a good time of year to do it too, is that we're going to do one of the boat. There's a couple of boat companies that take tours around the island of Isla, and you can do whiskey themed boat tours where you kind of can go up to every distillery other than Kilhoman is on the coast. So you can pull up literally to the distilleries in a lot of cases. You can taste the whiskey while you're looking at the distillery. You can, eat fresh seafood that's literally been caught moments before. But as Russell Brinklow in our chat says, you need to avoid the midgies, which is true.
Yes,
but,
that is true. But even more so up in, like Skye and, when you get up into the islands up there, they can be brutal. I remember my last time on Skye, I didn't have enough repellent on me and I got chomped. So I'm well prepared this summer when I go back. But you got to be aware of the midgets for sure.
Somewhere, I don't even know where it is, to be honest with you. But when before we made the film, our cinematographer Brad and I went to Isla for the festival and just to kind of do some groundwork and meet Jim for the first time, and we made some videos. We were making some social media videos on the point of land. It's right off of Ardbeg. It's sort of like there's that little kind of, you can walk out there and eat oysters, and it is so funny how many. I said, look, we're just got to get through this. It's 30 seconds. I'll just ignore the midgies, just shoot, and I'll talk, and we'll just do it. And every time it's like, it's unbelievable. They would be a very good torture device because they're impossible to withstand, at least for me. It's because
in upstate New York, we're a little accustomed to black flies during that same kind of time period, that June, early July, and they're a pain in the butt. There's no question about it. So, we're a little bit used to it. But so I moved on to my second whiskey. This one is truly true to my heart. This is from First Fill Spirits. I don't know how to make it.
There you go.
I can't focus on it, but it's a barrel of Stauning that we did at First Fill Spirits. It's a Stauning rye that's finished in tequila barrels, and it is absolutely incredible. Only a few barrels of Stauning in the U.S., and we were lucky to get one, and we love this one. We're actually entering it into some of the competitions this year because we think it's that worthy. So, so cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Holly, I saw wrote in there, do we have the things finalized? We don't yet, but we've been in discussions with them, and it's really just a matter of kind of the fringes now around what, the time of day and, what order we do things in, stuff like that. But the Kilhoman thing is definitely going to be really cool because it is going to be food, lots of different foods paired with different Kilhoman whiskeys. We're going to do something similar at Bruichladdich that's going to be a little bit more maybe terroir focused and food as well. And we're, all the things are going to be like that. And then we're going to sort of fill those in with a couple other sort of regular visits to some distilleries, just, there's plenty of whiskeys I'm just looking forward to trying because they're like distillery only things that, haven't been there in a year. So won't have tried them and looking forward to that as well.
There are some things you just can't say either. I mean, that's part of the Rascal and Thorn trip also. It's like when we do our so we do guest chef dinners where we bring in these big chefs from, not big, but really talented chefs from all over the world to upstate New York, and we do these, kind of incredible dinners. Well, we have these people who email me all the time. They're like, "Oh, can I see the menu? What's the menu?" They're not cheap, these dinners, and I can understand. Yeah, you're going to spend $150 or $200 on a dinner. You kind of want to know what you're going to get, but that's just not how we do it in general with Rascal and Thorn. You gotta, it's almost like a trust thing. And when you've done one of our trips, you just know, it's like, okay, I'm going to sign up because I know they're going to just knock it out of the park with some special things. Just like our dinners, all of the dinners have been just really, truly special. So we don't just disclose everything. So we're kind of a little vague on our itineraries, but that also gives us more flexibility because special things happen sometimes last minute too. And we just don't like to have everything set all at once, because
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
great to have the basics in place, sure. And we are working on some great things, but there will be other special things that will fall into place over the next couple of months that we just can't announce yet either. So it's just one of those things. That's kind of how it works with all of our trips. You know, like Japan, for example, I had a bunch of people ask, "Oh, what's the basic itinerary?" And I gave them the scope: Tokyo, Kyoto, Fukuoka. We're doing 10 nights. We're visiting a bunch of new distilleries. Most of these people have never even been to a distillery in Japan before, so they don't even know what they're going to get. It's pretty awesome. But, there's all these little details that get filled in within the last couple of months that make that trip that much even more special. So, same kind of thing with Isla. We've got some of the big foundations in place, which is, what we're basing the trip around, which is mostly the film, what the film focused on, and working with those people that the film worked with, and then adding all sorts of other, great stuff. So um, that's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah, and I mean, that you got to kind of open yourself up to that experience, and I think it's
Yes,
rewarding to do it.
exactly.
I mean, I certainly travel that way all the time. Even in my personal life, I'm not whiskey related at all. I just travel that way and
Yeah.
sort of find it as
I
I
mean,
go.
that's
And
what makes travel so great, right? I mean, you never know what you're gonna experience. I was in Old San Juan yesterday, walking around with my family, and I didn't know really what to expect, but we had this wonderful day, great food, found some cool spots to check out. You know, you just have to kind of go with the flow on some of those too.
yeah, and June is about as consistent a weather as you're going to get in Scotland. um,
Yes,
and
definitely bring your
um,
your rain gear.
so Russell Brinklow compared this to walking to a closed visit to visitors distillery and getting to talk to a contractor and who lets you take a look around.
Yeah,
I yes, but probably a little more safety compliant.
not necessarily.
Well, that's
That's
true.
one of the things that I love when I go to Kentucky. I bring my groups to Vendome, which is the copper still maker.
Yeah,
They make 95% of the stills in the U.S. They get most of their copper from Germany, and it's pretty amazing just to watch the whole thing. We walk around that place. I mean, any one of us could probably die in an instant if one of these things fell on us. But that's what makes it so special. I mean, you're like you're like with them, watching them, hands on. That's what makes it really cool. Same thing with the cooperages, even though now the cooperages have become much more safety compliant, which I can understand. But being able to walk through a warehouse without having to be rushed through it and take time and have samples pulled out of casks is truly a wonderful experience. And there will be a lot of that for sure on Isla.
absolutely. And there's plenty of well, there's 9 distilleries on island now that are open.
Yeah.
And so and they're someone actually wrote in the chat. Christopher Malloy said there might be more distilleries in New York City than on Islay.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
But I can only name one distillery in New York City. So
we have in New York now. We have over 60 whiskey distilleries in New York
in the
State.
city. Oh, in the
No,
state.
in the
Okay.
state. But down in the city and in the area, there's probably at least 10, if not more. Some of them are really small, but
it's one of the things that I really have always enjoyed doing is doing when I've been on Islay 5 times now or so, and I think that one of the things I like to do is every day do a little bit of non-whiskey related stuff. Go out on there's plenty of amazing like walks there. There's now I haven't done it yet, but there's now a hiking path that Brooklady actually helped do that. It connects Brooklady Village to Port Charlotte Village, and you can
incredible.
And I haven't done it yet because I think they opened it right as the pandemic began. So it's itching for to be walked upon, and I'll hopefully do that this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a beautiful place. Whiskey is definitely important, and the thing that drives Isla, but the beauty and the nature there is just unfound. I mean, it's such a beautiful island, and driving around, whatever. I mean, there will be plenty of opportunity to take it all in. That's for sure.
It's here I saw here Russell Brinklow again said I'm sure Georgie Crawford will give you shovels to do some digging on the new Port Natruan site. So last year my wife and I went to the festival last year, and the Port Natruan is, in case anyone doesn't know, is a new distillery that's going to be on Islay that's owned by Elixir. It's being built by Elixir. That is just south of Lefroy, and it's just a work site now. I mean, there wasn't anything there except fencing and mud. And then there was like a construction trailer, and you could go into the construction trailer and they would give you virtual reality glasses, VR goggles to show you what the distillery was going to look like. And then they would give you a dram of one of the other Elixir whiskeys releases.
Pretty awesome.
So we'll see what that's like this year. Maybe it's moved on a little bit. Although I hope the dram's still there. It was funny to walk into a construction trailer.
I remember watching Ardnahoe go up, and it was fun just seeing it each time being closer and closer, and now it's such a beautiful distillery on top of Brunehaven there. So yeah, cool stuff.
And we shot part of our film at Ardnahoe, and that we happened to be there the day they ran Spirit for the first time, and that was the very first Spirit run. So those are the kind of things you find. We didn't know that. We certainly didn't plan our shoot around because Ardnahoe wouldn't have known. They were just going to run Spirit when they were ready to, because they'd probably done 30 or 40 test runs, but this was they kind of, it just happened. It was just good synergy. It just happened. There's that word again. I hate that word, but there, I used it twice. Used it yesterday too.
One of the things that that Holly and I love the most about our shop is not just the independent bottlings that we have from all over Scotland mostly, but the newer distilleries. For us, that's so exciting. I mean, some people maybe are like, oh, there's already enough or whatever, there's plenty. No, the newer distilleries bring a new life, a new experimentation. They've got to distinguish themselves somehow, so they're bringing new things to the table. We just got Rasse in a few weeks ago. I was so excited. I mean, I haven't had any. Torabeg, Ardnamurchan, you name it. All of these newer distilleries are going to be big names. We visited Wolfburn back in 2019, and I had the same feeling with Wolfburn. It was just like, wow, it's this. In 20 years, this distillery is going to be like completely sought after, just like all of these other wonderful distilleries in Scotland. So, when we see Ardnahoe and Port Natruan and all of these others, even on Islay, where Islay is pretty saturated with whiskey, it's still exciting. There's no question about it. I mean, I love visiting new distilleries. Not just in Scotland, but in Ireland. I mean, there's a ton in Ireland now, and Japan is coming out with new distilleries every year now, and even in Kentucky. So, and all over the U.S. Australia. So the new distilleries are awesome.
So we got a question from Christopher Malloy. Are people paying enough attention to the pending peated malt crisis on Islay? And I assume, Christopher, and I see your follow-up comment, you're talking about Diageo and the Port Ellen maltings. So in case anyone doesn't know what he's talking about is the only malting on Islay is Port Ellen Maltings, which is owned by Diageo, and they've provided malt for non-Diageo distilleries through contracts for decades. And I believe now that they're going to own 3 distilleries on Islay, because they're reopening Port Ellen and they own Lagavulin and they own Kalila, they're going to start only providing to their own distilleries. To me, I honestly think that's just an opportunity for someone to open a new malting floors on Islay. Obviously there's probably a big barrier to entry, but it's not like Lefroy or Bowmore are little tiny pop-ups that don't have resources that they'll. I mean, Bruichladdich doesn't get their maltings from them anyway, and now Kilchoman doesn't either. So I think it's really going to affect Lefroy, Bowmore, Bunnahabhain. Am I forgetting one?
Ardbeg.
So I mean, they all have money behind them. I think they'll build another maltings. I
don't know.
I know Bruichladdich building their own, but I think they're building their own. That's going to be a small one that's only going to be floor malted Islay barley only. So if I were Baird's in Inverness, I'd be building a malting somewhere outside of Valley Grant right now.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, it is truly a dilemma, a problem for some of them. It could also be. It could also, I mean, who knows exactly, but it could also be a Diageo play. They could be it could be them playing a little bit of poker here too. I don't know. I mean, they truly do need them all. I understand that, but I don't think they're just going to leave everybody out in the dust right away either. There's probably going to be some kind of fix that will be put in place before there's true chaos from some of these other distilleries. But it would be a lot of work to create a new malting facility on Islay to replicate Port Ellen. I mean, Lefroy, I don't know. I don't see that happening quickly and then the big question is, will a malting facility on the mainland be able to reproduce anything close to what Port Ellen does? And I don't know if that's possible either. So it's going to be, it will be really interesting to see what happens. And I know they did throw out a date and all of that, or a year. But I don't know. I think it's a little bit of Diageo flexing their muscles too, in a maybe not so nice way, but they can. I mean, they're Diageo, right? I mean, so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens. It is a very interesting thing to watch and to see how it all plays out. But I don't think people should be running around freaking out thinking they're not going to get any more Lefroy, in the future.
Unpeated Lefroy.
Yeah.
I had some actually. I tasted some. I don't know where it was. Someone gave me a dram of unpeated Lefroy. It was an independent bottling, but it was something experiment or something they'd done.
The one thing that people probably should be talking about a little bit more, and I think they feel pretty comfortable on Islay with the amount of peat that is available and how long it's going to last, in terms of being environmentally conscious and all of that. They said there's at least 100 to 200 years worth, but I think if anything, that should be more of a focus on longevity and trying to figure that out versus what Diageo is going to do. But
when we were there last year, a report had just come out that a bunch of the peat areas on Islay that are used are so much deeper than they thought they were, that they had just one of them was 33 meters deep.
Oh, wow.
It's insane. So it was.
I wonder what the difference is, though. Like the peat that's that low, 30 meters in the ground. I mean, how different is it from, the peat closer to the top? I mean, that'd be interesting to know. Maybe there will be a 33-meter Lefroy.
Yeah, they're just a core sample from like way down. I mean, it's
Yeah.
funny because I just was talking to the guys at Westland because they just released that Solemn, their first peated, well, not their first peated whiskey, but their first Washington State peat.
Yeah.
And he, Matt Hoffman was talking about how people were asking about that, the sustainability of getting peat out of a bog in Washington, and you know, the amount of peat that they use a year for what they're doing is roughly the size of a bed mattress. I mean, it's nothing at all. It's, you know, absolutely minuscule.
Right.
He said it would last tens of thousands of years, and they're very, very, very like more than any other distillery I've ever met concerned with sustainability. You know. And
oh yeah.
So
Westland is an incredible place. Great people.
Absolutely.
Love them.
Yeah.
We're big Westland fans in our shop, and the Saratoga Whiskey Club, which is what I founded them. I founded that back in 2015. I mean, we've had numerous Westland tastings, and they've all just been fantastic. Really great people, and I think truly that's the most exciting thing for whiskey in the U.S. is the American single malt future. It's going to be incredible.
Yeah. So this has been so much fun, Charles. I'm just happy just to talk to you, whether we're talking about our trip or not. I really wish you were going to
I know.
come on the trip with us.
I am too. If I didn't have this, I have 2 private groups to Scotland. One I'm doing the coastal trip, and then I have another group in September. That's kind of a Speyside Highland trip. If I didn't have one of those trips already set in stone before we started talking, I would definitely be going on this trip. But I can't yet justify 3 trips in a row within 3 months of each other. So that's just too hard for the shop. It's too hard for my life, everything. So as much as I would love to,
I hope this is just the first of many.
For sure.
Because we're only, if people, I assume people who watch this have seen our film. We focused on a number of distilleries and we went all over Scotland, and yet this trip is mostly focused on Glasgow and Islay. And so we've got some other places to go.
Oh yeah.
So
lots of possibilities.
Oh wow! Yes. Look who's joined us.
Derek.
Mr. Derek Mather has joined him.
Oh man.
Hoping
I have some bottles for Derek.
Oh, nice.
I will be bringing some bottles to Derek in July, later in July, or actually it'll be early August. I'll be popping into the Artisan there with some bottles for Derek.
I see Russell Brinklow, who is in Aberdeenshire, is suggesting we come there, and I think we should on a future trip. Absolutely,
definitely.
And
yeah,
but I'm gonna go into Scotland at least 3 or 4 days ahead of time on the trip, and I'm gonna go into Artisan on the way. I wouldn't not. And I saw Fiona Beasley ask, "Where's the wee dram?" Sadly, Fiona, I'm on day 24 of a dry month. So Charles is drinking for both of us.
I have the wee Glencairn too.
I'm drinking seltzer. Actually, this is empty. I'm not drinking anything at this point. But I've become addicted to non-alcoholic Guinness over this month. It's because it's the ritual that I like, And as far as non-alcoholic beers are concerned, the best one I've ever had is the Guinness one. So this has been really fun. I'm really looking forward to the trip. I hope some people will come along with us. And
just so people know, there's literally I think 2 spots left on this trip. There might be 1. I don't know yet. We've had a few people in the last couple of days ask for information, so it's kind of a first come first serve type of trip. We don't hold spots. If people say I'm interested and can you hold me a spot? No, sorry. Reservation form. We'll send it to you. You get it to us. You're in. So that's how it works. But yeah, just a couple spots left.
Well, that's awesome. I'm looking forward. It'll be full. It's going to be a full trip, and I'm really looking forward to doing it, to sharing my whiskey nerdery, and in Glasgow too, because that's where I lived for. Now Glasgow. Yeah. We're not doing a Greg tour of Glasgow. I'm not going to show you where I lived or anything. You wouldn't want to see it anyway.
Oh, come on, Greg.
But
that's one of the special experiences we were counting on.
Yeah, I'll tell you where I live. I will tell you, and in case there's any Glaswegians here, I know Derek is relatively close. I lived in a part of Glasgow called Ruchazie. And the best way I can sum up Ruchazie is every time I ever tell a Glaswegian I lived in Ruchazie, the first thing they say is, why would they put exchange students in Ruchazie? And Jim McAlmon, who owns a taxi business on Isla, is from Ruchazie, lived there as a little boy. And he said, Ruchazie, there's 3 parts of Ruchazie: Upper Ruchazie, Middle Ruchazie, and Lower Ruchazie. And Upper Ruchazie hates Lower Ruchazie and vice versa. And if you lived in Middle Ruchazie, both sides hated you. So, that being said, I loved it. Don't get me wrong. It was as Roy Duff once said to me, a thicker slice of Glasgow, and it was, and it taught me to understand a Glaswegian accent very quickly. But no whiskey there, no whiskey to be spoken of. Really,
it's a fun city. Right? It's a great city. I love Glasgow. I mean, Edinburgh's beautiful. It's got your quaint, whatever, your Harry Potter-ness going on, but you get to Glasgow, I feel like you're in real Scotland. Like, I don't know. It's great. I mean, not dissing Edinburgh at all. I love Edinburgh. I love going there. But when I'm in Glasgow, I feel more like I'm home in a way. It's not as touristy. It's more just kind of real in a way.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, Glasgow always reminded me of Pittsburgh. I'm from the middle of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, there you go. Working city.
And Philadelphia, Edinburgh looks prettier. Although Philadelphians not like Edinburgh, but Philadelphia is the prettier city. Pittsburgh's the grittier city. And so I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully we'll get some more details in the next couple of days too, because next week we've got a few calls and stuff set up, so it'll be fun.
Yep.
Enjoy. I'm sorry to punch a hole in your Puerto Rican vacation. So.
No, this is perfect. No, actually, this is the time that I like to come back from whatever day thing we've been doing and just chill out, have a dram. So it's perfect time. It made me take a shower, which I really needed. All good.
I see Christopher Malloy has cousins in Nazareth, PA. Well, my brother-in-law lives near Nazareth. I'm from the Harrisburg area originally, and then lived in Lancaster for years. So, but now I hang out in the upstate New York because my wife's family lives all up there. That's how I met these guys.
And I'm from San Francisco, so
there you go. Get around.
I've been around. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, have fun, Charles. Thanks, everyone. Next week, I'm going to have, I don't know if Peter's still in the chat, but Peter Pulkert, who created the whiskey board game, is going to be my guest next week. Awesome. I love having my act together enough that I can tell you one week who's going to be the guest next week. I've actually posted the next 6 guests on our Facebook group. So hopefully.
Oh, and let me do a quick plug in too. We do a podcast, Holly and I. It's called It's Whiskey. We're on all of the platforms as well, Spotify, you name it. But yeah, we just talk about whiskey every other week or so. Kind of new bottles that have come into the shop. Just whiskey news as well. And definitely check out our website, firstfillspirits.com. We have a lot of great bottles there. We can only ship to some states currently, but you know me now. Just reach out. We'll figure out a way to get a bottle to you somehow. So check it out, and a lot of good stuff on there.
Peter is still here, so he's looking forward to it. And Russell says I'm almost professional by having 6 guests lined up in a row. So thanks, everybody. Bye now.
See you guys. Bye.